Ruby Ridge Conspiracy. Welcome to Tricky Mickey. Please support the channel by subscribing, share, and like. At the end of the video, please leave a comment at the bottom. Spread the word, Tricky Mickey is here. Thank you. In this episode of Tricky Mickey, we're going to explore Ruby Ridge. What was it? Why was it the beginning of the end of America as we know it, when the government that we believe is here to protect us brutally murdered an American family in Idaho back in 1992. Let us explore this. Who is the enemy? The enemy, unfortunately, is anybody in government who believes in power and not the rule of law. If you're reading this, you're considered a threat to your government. The government doesn't want the people to understand their birthright under the Constitution, Bill of Rights, and Declaration of Independence. Today, there's a deliberate dumbing down in public school education of Americanism. Most Americans really don't know their birthright. Most Americans don't even read the Constitution. It happened in Idaho. This is Idaho. And here we have Bonnie Fair up there in northern Idaho near Naples. And this is Idaho, and in the bottom is Boise, which is the capital of Idaho. The whole incident of Ruby Ridge happened up there, the Weaver's homestead. Ruby Ridge was a site of a deadly confrontation and siege in northern Idaho in 1992 between Randy Weaver and his family and his friend Kevin Harris against the agents of the USA Marshal Services and the FBI. Under 20 acres of remote land in Idaho, they were homeschooling their children peacefully. Randy Weaver was a U.S. Army combat engineer. The government is the people's best friend. That's what they want you to believe. We're from the government. We're here to help. As you can see, what they wanted to do was to arrest Randy Weaver on trump-up weak charges of weapon possession. Some of weapons that he had, which he had a right to have under the Second Amendment of the Constitution, some of them had expired the permit. So they wanted to arrest him for that. The reason why Mr. Randy Weaver and his family were on their homestand is that he believed there will be a cataclysm and end of day beliefs, meaning he was practicing his religious belief. So naturally, the United States federal government under Janet Reno of the time and under President Clinton said these people are dangerous. You have to die because we are protecting your children. Unfortunately, the first casualty of the deadly confrontation on the Weavers' 20-acre ranch, their homestead, was Randy Weaver's wife. She was shot through the head by a United States sniper. The only reason was that they said that she was a threat to her children, that she was going to murder them. They have no evidence of this whatsoever. Then came the death of Randy Weaver's son, Sam Weaver, son and heir. This is 14-year-old Sam Weaver, who, while with a friend of the family, Mr. Harris, were out there foraging for food. They confronted a United States Marshal, and there was a gunfight, and he was shot and killed. The sniper. This is the sniper who murdered Mrs. Weaver. His name is Long Horishishi. Sorry for the mispronunciation. Eventually, he was going to be given a medal for his excellent sharpshooting skill in the murder of a defenseless woman holding her child. She was shot right through the head. Death to Vicki Weaver by our bloody hand, the government. On this day, August the 22nd, 1992, the federal siege at Ruby Ridge, Day 2, Vicki Weaver, who was born on June 1949, died on August 22nd, 1992. The mother of four. She was shot and killed by FBI sniper Long Horishishi. Remember Ruby Ridge. There is no reason to have murdered in cold blood an American woman, the mother of four children. Death to Sam Weaver by the evil U.S. Marshals. On this day, August 21st, 1992, The FBI siege at Ruby Ridge began. Sam Weaver was born April 1978 and died August 21st, 1992. He was only 14 years old. He was shot and killed by U.S. Marshal. All he was doing with Mr. Harris, a friend of the family, was hunting for food. They were ambushed by U.S. Marshal. There was a gunfight, and this 14-year-old boy was murdered in cold blood by the United States Marshals. Remembering Ruby Ridge. On August 21st, 1992, federal agents scouted the Idaho forest for a place to ambush Randy Weaver, a man that they suspected of selling illegally modified weapons. They first encountered the suspect's teenage son and his friend in the woods and engaged them in a firefight, killing Sam Weaver. The following day, while surrounding the family, a secluded home, federal snipers wounded Randy Weaver and shot his wife dead through the head. The trial begins. The federal government did their best to paint Mr. Weaver as an Aryan member. He had ties to Aryan members organization, a white supremacist organization that believed that white Americans should just go somewhere and create their own whites-only community. This is no reason to murder his family just because he has a belief system. We're entitled as Americans to believe in whatever we want to believe, and also to live in secluded areas of our country on our own land. But the government has a totally different attitude. You will be dictated to. You will obey what the government says because they have your best interest in mind. They see themselves as our rulers, like kings and aristocrats, while we are the peasants to be dominated and subjugated into obedience. The evidence against the U.S. When all is said and done, when all the investigation was completed, it was found out that the government of the United States did not have a legs to stand on. All the evidence that they brought, that they tried to create a story, that this guy was an apocalypse believer, that he was an extremist, that he was out to destroy his own family, it all fell apart for the government. It was all proven false. It all just backfired on them. The government and the U.S. found guilty. The United States has complete egg on its face. It has no credibility. They were forced to pay Randy Weaver $100,000 and each of their 3 surviving daughters $1 million each. This is poor consolation for a man who lost his wife and his son. But at least we now know that the government is evil and will do anything to perpetuate its power. We don't care. Medals for everyone. After the verdict was rendered against the government, and settling with the Weavers, the government did not acknowledge any wrongdoing. In March 1996, the 6 marshals involved in the shootout were presented the Marshals' highest award for valor for their action at Ruby Ridge. The contempt the government has for even a democratic ruling from a court only goes to show you what they really think about us, the American people. The uprising of the American people. Ruby Ridge taught many Americans who understand their birthright that they have to stand up at all times for each other, or else they're going to be next. The government really doesn't care about its people. It only cares about power and money and influences domestically and internationally. The media lies. The media is controlled by 6 corporations in the United States of America, and they're in bed with the federal government. They painted Ruby Ridge as an extremist organization, and to this very day, they're always painting it as an issue of gun control. Well, this would not have happened if they did not have guns, and if they did not have a right to own their own land, and if they did not have a right to practice their own religious belief, and if they did not have a right to stand up. Basically, the media, which is controlled by the liberal extremists, want Americans to be slaves. Honor the fallen. Let us understand what all of this Ruby Ridge means to all of us. Vicki Weaver. Today is the 23rd anniversary of the killing of Vicki Weaver. She was a mother, a wife, a daughter, and loved dearly. She was murdered in cold blood by the FBI as she held her child. Never forget She died, and her death will have no meaning if we, the American people, just forget about Ruby Ridge. Vicky, Sam, and America, How the Government Killed All Three. Randy Weaver. This is a book written by Mr. Randy Weaver, honoring the memory of his son and wife. The Real Patriots, the militia movement of the United States of America. The militia movement, the incident at Ruby Ridge and Waco, fueled a hatred of the government by right-wing patriots and the widening of the militia movement all over the United States of America. The militia movement, contrary to the propagandist, evil left-wing media of the United States, controlled by corporation and is nothing but a propaganda, always paints anybody who believes in their birthright as Americans as extremists and radical and right-wing nuts and fanatics. How can you be a fanatic if you stand up for your birthright of Americanism? The rights of the people. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. What this means is when the American people form an organization, they are a militia, and their intent is to protect freedom and liberty. All authority comes from the will of the American people to be governed. The citizen militias of the United States of America. Ruby Ridge taught people that they need to have arms, a lot of it, to stand up against the United States police force, which exists to serve and protect the people who write them their paycheck. Don't be deluded. The police force is not there to protect you. They are being trained to see us as the enemy. The citizen militia is your way to protect yourself and your family. It's the people's right to protect and defend America's freedom and liberties. Here we have one of many malicious organizations that are spread out throughout the United States of America. It is wonderful that we have these patriots who know how to stand up for themselves. As a retired member of the Armed Forces of the United States of America, I salute everybody who practice their birthright as Americans. Whose tyranny? Tyranny is defined as that which is legal for the government, but illegal for the citizenry. If you believe the government of the United States actually follows the rule of law, you got to be kidding. They don't believe in the rule of law. They believe in the power of the gun pointed at our head. They believe in the power of their authority. They are the new aristocrats, wannabe tyrants of our country. A warning to the people. Warning. Asserting your constitutional rights may get you picked up on suspicion of terrorism. The United States of America, according to the Patriot Act, passed during 9/11 by the Bush administration, states the government has a right to point their finger at you for criticizing them, for questioning them, and declare that you're a terrorist and take away the little rights that you have to defend yourself. Our government will protect us. Really? As you can see in this picture, more and more issues are being decided domestically and internationally by the United States government as the police force of the world in order to protect the interests of corporation and corporate fascism. This country is no longer a land of the free and home of the brave. It is one of economic and political power. Warning, it's dangerous to be right when the government is wrong. The government will use deadly force to silence any Americans. We now have drones situated strategically all over the United States of America to take anybody out who dares exercise the right of assembly and the right to freedom of speech. You will be executed. This is how America is going down the drain fast. Please support my channel by subscribing to Tricky Mickey. Thank you. I thoroughly enjoy bringing you all of these videos, enticing you to think for yourself with all the facts, evidence, details, and proof that I bring you. Using circumstantial evidence, using direct evidence, showing you where a trend is going. Imploring you to think for yourself independently. You cannot rely on traditional sources of media because it's all controlled by six corporations and their purpose is to propagandize you and brainwash you. Beware what you see and hear on television is designed out of pure scripted malarkey. Thank you for listening and watching with me. Take care, and until next time, this is Tricky Mickey saying bye. The government doesn't want the people to understand their birthright under the Constitution, Bill of Rights, and Declaration of Independence. Today, there's a deliberate dumbing down in public school education of Americanism. Most Americans really don't know their birthright. Most Americans don't even read the Constitution. It happened in Idaho. This is Idaho. And here we have family and his friend Kevin Harris against the agents of the USA Marshal Services and the FBI. Under 20 acres of remote land in Idaho, they were homeschooling their children peacefully. Randy Weaver was a U.S. Army combat engineer. The government is the people's best friend. That's what they want you to believe. Ruby Ridge Conspiracy. Welcome to Tricky Mickey. Please support the channel by subscribing, share, and like. At the end of the video, please leave a comment at the bottom. Spread the word, Tricky Mickey is here. Thank you. In this episode of Tricky Mickey, we're going to explore Ruby Ridge. What was it? Why was it the beginning of the end of America as we know it? When the government, Bonnie Fair up there in northern Idaho near Naples, and this is Idaho, and in the bottom is Boise, which is the capital of Idaho. The whole incident of Ruby Ridge happened up there. The Weaver's homestead. Ruby Ridge was a site of a deadly confrontation and siege in northern Idaho in 1992 between Randy Weaver and his that we believe is here to protect us, brutally murdered an American family in Idaho back in 1992. Let us explore this. Who is the enemy? The enemy, unfortunately, is anybody in government who believes in power and not the rule of law. If you're reading this, you're considered a threat to your government.